thanks for coming out this morning on the occasion of my first day of law school. So initially, I want to thank the Elizabeth Hobbs School of Law at Pace University for admitting me. The school has a special significance to me. It's located in White Plains, which is the county seat of Westchester County, which is the same area where the county court is that I was wrongfully convicted at, which I wound up doing 16 years before I emerged back from prison through the county court. As everyone knows, my name is Jeffrey Deskovic. I served 16 years in prison for murder and rape, which I didn't commit. I was lost all 7 of my appeals. I got turned down for parole. Ultimately, I was exonerated by further DNA testing, which not only affirmed my innocence, as demonstrated by the pre-trial DNA exclusion, but it also identified the actual perpetrator, who was subsequently arrested and convicted and sentenced to additional time in prison. Of course, I'm only free because he got caught for committing a second crime, a murder of a school teacher, just 3.5 years later after killing the victim in the case for which I did 16 years. Upon emerging from prison about 10 years ago, I was committed to fighting wrongful convictions through every means which is within my power. So for about 5 years, I was an individual advocate. I wore many hats in that capacity. Gave more than 100 presentations across the country and sometimes in foreign countries. I was a columnist for 5 years at a weekly newspaper where I authored more than 200 articles and published in 9 different publications. And lobbied elected officials in Albany and in Connecticut and testified at legislative hearings where wrongful conviction prevention measures were considered. Done a lot of media interviews, basically trading privacy in exchange for a greater awareness of issues. After about 5 years, I was financially compensated through New York State's compensation law, and I also was able to sue in federal court for a federal civil rights lawsuit. I had as defendants Westchester County. This was their medical examiner who committed fraud. They settled with me. The Peekskill Police Department, because they coerced a false confession out of me, they settled with me. Also was a defendant, Westchester County the Legal Aid Society of Westchester. They settled with me. And of course I went to trial with Putnam County for their role in also coercing a confession out of me and with the polygraph. Upon receiving the financial compensation, I decided I wanted to take my advocacy work to the next level, and so I used a substantial amount of the money to launch a nonprofit organization whose purpose is to free similarly situated people, as well as continuing the awareness aspect and legislative prong that I did on my own. In our 4-year history, we exonerated 2 people. We exonerated William Lopez, who had served 23.5 years in prison prior to us collaboratively exonerating him, along with his pre-existing counsel, Richard Levitt and Yvonne Shivers. We recently exonerated William Haughey, who had been wrongfully convicted in Putnam County, ironically, of all places. And he had done 8 years and 4 months for an arson, which he didn't commit. We have several cases which were close to winning exonerations, and I've been fortunate also to have law firms interested in taking cases on pro bono that the foundation is able to refer to them, because we can only do so much in-house, and the goal is to try to help as many people as possible regain their freedom. We've also been able to help 3 of our clients obtain parole on innocence grounds. We sent a letter to the parole board outlining the primary and secondary reasons why we believe that they were innocent, and we urged the board to release them, because normally if a prisoner doesn't express remorse and take responsibility and instead asserts innocence at the board, they get turned down for parole, and that thus extending what's already been an unjust prison sentence. today represents a significant chapter in my history as an advocate. I am attempting to take things to yet another level. While I intend to continue to try to obtain exonerations through my nonprofit entity, assisted by staff, volunteers, etc., I also want to personally represent some people and to personally exonerate some of the wrongfully convicted cases that come through the foundation, but I want to be the attorney of record. So I want to go from kind of coaching on the sidelines and to directly exonerating people. Some of my other goals with the law degree beyond exoneration is I intend to use the degree to further some of the preventative steps. I hope that having the additional credential will get me an audience, open a few more eyes, a few more ears when it comes to the New York State Legislature and other influential people. Myself and many other advocacy organizations that have been at it even longer than I have. We've been trying to get a number of reforms passed in New York which are designed to improve the accuracy of the justice system, ranging from a commission on prosecutor conduct, which would be an independent oversight board for prosecutors, videotaping interrogations, having better identification procedures, having a standardized evidence preservation system, having a requirement that nobody should be convicted based solely on an informant without at least one other piece of external evidence. I've been at it for about 10 years. Many other advocacy organizations have been at it longer than this. There's a lot of reforms that are passed throughout the country, sometimes in southern states, including Texas, that you can't quite seem to get anything passed in New York. We get close, but no cigar. So I'm hoping that the additional credential can add to my efforts in collaboration with others and finally getting some much needed reforms passed here in New York. In a lot of ways, this kind of is the first step of attaining a dream for me. Most of the time, people who are exonerated, we don't have the opportunity to live dreams. The law just doesn't bounce that way. While I wasn't thinking about wrongful conviction and exonerating people, I did want to be a lawyer in my teens. My mother had a personal injury lawyer, and he was always dressed very nicely in suits, and he had an attaché case, and he seemed to be well respected. He seemed to be making some really good money, and he seemed to be making a difference. So, in a way, I'm getting a chance to try to live that dream. Here, I'm still being a lawyer, just doing something different with a degree, which kind of brings me back full circle in a way to the point I opened up with, which is, again, I want to really thank the law school here, Elizabeth Hobbs School of Law, Pace University. Had they not agreed to admit me, I would have, there was only one other school that was willing to allow me to attend, so I would have had to move to another state, and uproot my entire life to try to pursue the dream. And instead, I get to do that here in White Plains. It's in Westchester County. The county has a sentimental value to me because I grew up in Westchester prior to my life being disrupted. It's a short 9 blocks from the courthouse where everything went tragically wrong for me, and eventually I emerged. I hope to exonerate some people in Westchester in the future once I get that law degree. And I think in a lot of ways I can be a symbol of justice when I walk into the courthouse there. I think that it'll help me feel even better about myself. I like to compare sometimes what I could have been versus what I'm doing now. And I know I have a body of work, but I'm kind of a glass half empty type person when it comes to evaluating, what I've been able to do versus what I want to do in the future. And so I think that this will add to me feeling even better about myself. So I hope to enhance the educational experience of some of the other students here in school through my participation in the class discussion. And I hope to have some side conversations with people when it comes to talking about criminal justice, when it comes to talking about corrections, and I even have some insight into the civil system, having had to participate in various lawsuits in the process of trying to obtain compensation. I intend to point out where the deficiencies are in the system. I anticipate that a good amount of the students who graduate here will go on to be people who have some influence in one way or another. Maybe some of them become prosecutors, maybe some, who see the importance of really scrutinizing cases and going about things in an ethical manner and constitutional, and with an eye for not just prosecuting each case, but instead scrutinizing it to be sure they're prosecuting the right person. Some of them may become defense lawyers, and perhaps through hearing of me or speaking with me, they'll make that extra effort in the further representation of their clients, and maybe that makes a difference. Maybe some of them become judges. Maybe some go on to become elected officials, and they'll have an interest in these issues and trying to get legislation passed to make the system more accurate, not just in terms of wrongful convictions, but in terms of the justice system in general. I think that as a country, we have a long way to go when it comes to prison reform, when it comes to prisoner reentry, when it comes to parole reform, when it comes to inmate education. I benefited from inmate education. I got an associate's degree while I was incarcerated, and I